You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. The Ombudsman has filed graft and technical malversation charges against a former health secretary over the controversial school-based dengue vaccination program during the Aquino administration. The case against Janette Garin and others were formally, or other officials was lodged before the Sandigan Bayan. The Ombudsman says the respondents were involved in the realignment of the Health Department's budget for the purchase and rollout of the Dengvaxia vaccines for public school students. After vaccinating over 800,000 young students, the program was abruptly stopped in late 2017 after vaccine maker Sanofi Pasteur announced Dengvaxia can lead to severe dengue if the vaccinee has not caught the virus before the immunization. Let's go straight to the source of the story, Iloilo City 1st District Representative Janette Garin. Congresswoman, good to see you again. Welcome to The Source.
Thank you for inviting me, Pinky. Good morning.
Okay, so this Dengvaxia controversy continues to hound you. I'd like to do my best, ma'am, to break this down. The latest of which, in terms of the cases that you are facing. Let's begin with the latest one. This one coming from the Ombudsman. It's graft and technical malversation cases filed against you, and I believe it's 4 others for what is supposed to be being said as the unauthorized purchase of Dengvaxia. And a part of it says this: willingly, unlawfully, and feloniously were responsible for the release of 3.57 billion of public funds to increase the budget, ito po yun for the expanded program for immunization, or EPI, which were used for the purchase of Dengvaxia, which apparently or allegedly is not part of the EPI. How do you respond to this, and how do you explain this, Congresswoman?
That is why, Pinky, it's better discussed in the courts. And we welcome this development. Kasi sa tagal na naka-file ng ito, naka-file, nag-dismiss, meron naman ibang pina-file ulit. And kinalat, no, not only in the Ombudsman, but other government agencies as well. And that is why the filing before the Sandigan will be our first step to finally put an end to this long-standing issue that has been haunting Filipino scientists, experts, and vaccinologists. Now, the allegations of realignment is, of course, not true, and we'll prove that in at the proper venue, and that is the court. Kasi syempre, with the complainants in the office of the Ombudsman, the presentation of evidence, in the courts, I mean, when you go to the court, sa pagkakaintindi ko, as what my lawyers are saying, that's the time that offices can be subpoenaed. A DBM can actually be subpoenaed if indeed there was a realignment or not. And
obviously, ma'am, DBM...
Other documents can also be subpoenaed.
DBM during the time of the Aquino administration, which would be Secretary Butch Abad's time, hindi ho ba?
Yes, but the documents are still with DBM because as far as we are concerned, the source of the augmentation of the immunization program was from the MPBF, or yung Miscellaneous Personal Benefit Fund. So it's a lump sum under the Office of the Department on Budget and Management that can be used to augment programs that needs additional funds. So pagka naubos na yung pondo ng pagbabakuna and you need more vaccines, then DBM can augment not only immunization, but other programs as well. So the immunization program in the Department of Health, not only during my 1 year of stint as secretary, but ever since, all throughout the several decades that DOH has been in existence and has started immunization, the term, or what we call the bahay, is actually called immunization. You don't specify the individual vaccines there to give flexibility to the department because you can't predict the number of doses or the number of vaccines that you will be needing. Outbreaks can happen, then you pull out from that fund. In this case, and also, you cannot buy a vaccine that does not have a CPR yet and has not been given an exemption from the PNBF, or the Philippine National Drug Formulary. And that is the reason why it's a lump sum encompassing all vaccines. So that's why, again, the best recourse for this to be discussed and finally laid down to rest is the court, so that all the scientific terminologies will be defined by experts, all the documents will be subpoenaed and presented properly.
But what is it? I hope you can explain this to us. When the ombudsman was actually saying that the Dengvaxia vaccines were not listed in that volume 1 of the Philippine drug formulary and have not secured an exemption from being listed in the Philippine drug formulary in violation of an executive order supposed to be number 48. So in layman's terms for me, hindi po siya ng parte ng medicine that where this money should have been used because it was not part of it, Dengvaxia was not part of it, and there was no exemption whatsoever.
Put it this way, these are two separate items, Pinky.
Okay.
The program under the budget is immunization. So it's general, it's generic. I mean, it's a lump sum for all vaccines that the government needs and the government will be needing. So it's for the regular immunization program. It's also for vaccines that might be needed in certain circumstances, like an outbreak or calamities, and other vaccines that will be developed during that year. Tatlo po kasi ang categories nun. So if that funds will be depleted and you need more, DBM can augment that funds from the MPBF. It's a lump sum under the DBM. So yan po ang nangyari. So the DBM augmented the funds of the DOH simply because they knew that we already didn't have budget for dengue vaccine dahil hindi nga siya, we were waiting for the compliance. I mean, this program was announced by two secretaries. They started in 2005, 2010, announced in 2014 by Asek Kubial during that time and Secretary Ona. And now, the augmentation of funds was released during my time. So with that development, the department implemented the program, and the SARO was very specific. The SARO says, for the procurement of dengue vaccine in NCR, Region 3 and Region 4A.
Yes,
That's very specific. So what you're saying, the PNDF is different. The Philippine National Drug Formulary is in compliance with the generics law na ang sinasabi ng PNDF, all devices, medicines, and vaccines that will be purchased by the government should be in the PNDF, including local government units. Now, including the central office. Now, the PNDF, the process of applying for that listing takes long. So what happens in the Department of Health is that exemptions are being applied by the program director. That happens in a lot of cases, like HIV medications, TB medications, cancer medicines, vaccines, new devices. So this happens on a constant weekly, monthly meeting, their applications for exemption. And in this case, Dengvaxia, dengue vaccine, had a certificate of exemption from the PNDF. My role there is to approve or disapprove the recommendation of the Formulary Executive Council. And in this case, the recommended approval, which I did and I approved. So again, your question is, was there an exemption? Yes. However, the manner by which this can be presented is in the courts.
Okay.
Because the complainant of this case is Attorney Glenn Chong. Now, his witnesses is Dr. Tony Liachon and Dr. Cairo, both of whom are not involved in the implementation of the program, both of whom are not privy to the process by which the program was initiated, then culminated during my time, then expanded and implemented again by Secretary Ubial and Secretary Duque. Kaya nga, maganda po ito na ilalagay na sa korte. Because it's the best forum where all documents can be examined.
And can be shown and presented. So
yes,
to summarize that, when we're talking about this PNDF, it's becoming a little too technical, to be honest. No? Basically, you're saying that you were able to secure an exemption. Did I understand that correctly for Dengvaxia?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So now we just need to take a short break. We need to find out about the word realignment because this was used. And I know from previous interviews you said that there is a SARO for this. Let's talk about that after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Iloilo City 1st District Representative Janette Garin. So, Congresswoman, there is no question about the money, 3.57 billion pesos, supposed to be for Dengvaxia. I hope I'm getting the facts straight. So, wala pong problema dyan. Ang nagiging problema, according to the Ombudsman, is that it was supposed to be part of the immunization program, which Dengvaxia was not part of, but you were saying that there is an immunization program, an umbrella, to which pag nagkulang po yung pera dito, pwede kayong humingi ng extra, where the DBM basically augments this and gives the money to you. I hope I summarized that pretty clear enough and accurate enough?
Yes, so the issue is there is an immunization program.
Yes.
But there is no specific Dengvaxia program.
Correct.
Now, the way it works, Pinky, in the Department of Health, the immunization program is actually a line item that covers all vaccines for children, the regular immunization program, vaccines for pregnant women, vaccines for senior citizens.
All vaccines.
And new vaccines that will be developed in the course of the year.
Kasama po yun doon sa line item, even the new vaccines that will be developed and maybe approved. It's part of that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the description. You don't have an item, let's say example, sa budget ng Pilipinas, you don't put there polio vaccine, measles vaccine,
Right.
Japanese encephalitis
Of
vaccine, hepatitis vaccine, because it will not give the department the flexibility kung eto minsan nagmahal ang dollars, or there's like shortage, or there's like a calamity and you immediately need to buy this certain, or there's an outbreak of diarrhea and you need.
But Congresswoman, I understand that.
So
Hindi naman po
not
pwedeng naka-isa-isa. That's impossible. Besides, but in the immunization program, it clearly states there, basically you're saying that it can include new vaccines. Correct, ma'am?
Yes, it
Okay.
covers 4. Regular immunization, vaccines for senior citizens, vaccines for pregnant women, and vaccines that may develop during the course of the year. So that's very clear.
All right. Now, let's talk about this word realignment. Could you respond, was there a realignment, ma'am, or was it an added amount in the form of a SARO from the DBM, the Department of Budget and Management, by then Secretary Butch Abad, specifically for the purchase of Dengvaxia?
Internally in the Department of Health, we did not have any realignment. Okay, because the MPBF is a lump sum fund that comes from the Department of Budget and Management. Now, I hope you won't mind, Pinky. I really want to answer all of the questions and I can answer it. However, it's best presented in the court. Kaya nga gusto namin na talagang sa korte para maipresenta lahat ng mga papeles. Because when you talk about realignment, like there's a funding from a certain program at nilipat mo dun sa kabilang program inside, within the Department of Health. Of course, the documents will speak for itself that it did not happen because the funding came from the Department of Budget and Management.
Okay.
And it was very clear. It was very specific for the procurement of dengue vaccine. In fact, it was also very specific for regions, for specific regions, NCR, Region 3, and Region 4A.
Right.
So siguro, if like example, we implemented it in an area outside of the 3 areas, then maybe I'm not a lawyer.
Pose a problem.
But that can be misconstrued as technical malversation.
I see, I understand. In fact, I just raised that, Congresswoman, because this is something you've actually said in the past, that you were countering this kind of argument, saying that there was no realignment of funds as the SARO, or the Special Allotment Release Order, from the DBM clearly stated that it was for dengue vaccines. Yun na nga po, as you mentioned a while ago, for Central Luzon, Calabarzon, and NCR. This is something actually you've said in the past that I've come across again and bringing it up now. And also, just to be clear, ma'am, apart from this, maliban po dito, meron pa ho kayong kinakaharap na kaso, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, before the Quezon City Family Court. Ito naman po yung supposed to be filed by the DOJ.
Yeah, this is the cases also filed by Tao.
Yes.
By Persida Acosta. And the one, yeah, and in this case kasi, naka-file siya sa MTC, the dismiss, refile ulit, the dismiss. So it's good that the Supreme Court finally decided that all of these cases should be handled by a family court. Kasi what happened before is, it was some sort of like a harassment already because scientists and doctors will have to go around the whole country. No, kasi na iba-iba nga. And then there were, I believe there were, ano siya eh, parang kumbaga the biggest problem I believe at the DOJ at that time was there's a debate kung who has the proper, I'm not sure of the tech corrector, parang hindi alam kung the proper forum, but who is the proper court to handle this, no?
Yeah.
Because if you talk about genocide, if you talk about mass murder, then it doesn't fall with the ICC.
Yeah.
So yan po yung mga naging katanungan and caused the delay. So now, this is good for us because in the RTC, actually the Public Attorney's Office has already presented their alleged expert witness. So that was Dr. Cairo, Tony Lachon, and Erfe. And then now in the Sandigan Bayan, once it starts, they can also present their witness para ma-rebut naman namin at mapresenta namin yung mga eksperto, mapresenta namin yung mga dokumento. Similar to what's happening in the RTC. So bottom line is, this is actually good because it will put an end once and for all to the Dengvaxia issue, because the dengue vaccine issue did not only affect the Philippines, did not only affect dengue vaccine, it has affected the global immunization coverage because that is really expected. That's how it happens. When you hit or demonize a certain vaccine, it affects the whole vaccination process, not only in your country, but the entire global community.
All right.
You remember the measles and the autism issue in the US, which was proven wrong. The lawyers natanggalan ng lisensya, yung doktor natanggalan ng lisensya, but the impact of that misinformation or fake news spread like fire globally, including the Philippines. Kaya marami ang hindi nagpabakuna, marami ang namatay. In this case, it's very clear. Dengue has no cure. Dengue kills. The Philippines is the exporter of dengue throughout the whole world. Mutations are constantly happening in the Philippines. And when we talk about vaccination, there are 4 primary purposes. First, to zero deaths. Second, avoid severe cases. Third, avoid hospitalization. And fourth, avoid further mutation. And that is why it was supposed to be our global responsibility to help solve this problem. Now we are in the situation. The Philippines has been a laughingstock in the whole world because it's the only country who stopped the vaccination program without scientific basis.
Okay.
It's continuing in other countries. Kaya nga dapat matuldukan na ito. So the best venue that all of this will be discussed is in the courts.
The courts, yes. All right. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. Iloilo City 1st District Representative Janette Garin. Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.